This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist, because we're all better with help. Visit BetterHelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime,
Citizen Detective, and
Campus Killings.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Jeremy Scott Reagan was born April 2nd, 1982. His mother, Robin, is our guest today. She tells us that Jeremy was smart and accomplished, had a good job, and by the time of his disappearance, had several children with 2 exes and his current wife, Heather. His personal life was complicated, but everyone was amicable and on good terms. Jeremy and Heather and her twins lived in the 3100 block of Forest Park Terrace in Forest Park, Oklahoma. They moved there for work after Jeremy's job in Arkansas, where he was from and had family, downsized him. Although Jeremy always told his mom and dad that things were fine, Robin has since learned that he was not happy in Oklahoma City. He hated his job and also faced challenges with his twin stepchildren, who were teenagers, and his wife, as they were both working from home. Further, Jeremy's grandfather had died in July 2021, and his grandmother had dementia. It was a hard time for the family. Jeremy also suffered from progressive hearing loss due to a genetic condition. He couldn't really hear without his hearing aids in place. According to Jeremy's wife, Heather, on August 27th, there was a family argument involving Jeremy and his stepson. It's not clear exactly what happened, but Jeremy apparently reacted violently momentarily and then backed off. But he continued to encounter arguing from his family. And finally, at 11:30 a.m., he took his gun and his cell phone, which was turned off, and left in his truck. Robin tells us that it is very typical of Jeremy to seek out nature for peace and solitude. He had gravitated toward natural escapes his whole life, away from the city. While living in Forest Park, Jeremy usually sought refuge at the Lexington Wildlife Management Area, a 45 to 60-minute drive from his home. This was a 10,000-acre wildlife refuge that featured lakes and, in parts, woods and heavy brush. Jeremy was what his family describes as a survivalist. He knew how to live outdoors, how to find or make shelter, how to locate water, what to eat and what not to eat. He always brought his gun with him in case he encountered a wild animal. In short, he was very comfortable in this kind of setting and even sought it out. Robin had no idea that her son had left the house in anger. For unrelated reasons, she texted Jeremy and his wife Heather on a group text the following day, and Heather notified her that she didn't know where Jeremy was, and he'd been gone for 24 hours. Heather filed a missing persons report on Sunday afternoon with the Forest Park police. They learned that Jeremy had used his debit card at an on-cue gas station at Northeast 23rd and Douglas Boulevard in Lexington after he left the house on Saturday. But he didn't show up for work on Monday, something that was totally out of character for Jeremy. Then, on that Monday, August 29th, a park ranger found Jeremy's 2011 silver Nissan Frontier pickup parked near Smith Lake at the Lexington Wildlife Management area. The truck was locked. Inside was Jeremy's phone, still turned off. His wallet was there, too. There was no sign of Jeremy. That very day, Oklahoma State Game personnel and the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office initiated full-scale searches for Jeremy at the location where his truck was found. Search dogs were brought in and they tracked his scent from his truck to Smith Lake, which was not far from where the truck was parked. Robin tells us that Jeremy was afraid of water and would not have gone into the lake. Drones were used for overhead infrared and video searching, but detected nothing. The following day, the 30th, search and rescue teams came in and law enforcement searched wide swaths of the wildlife management area with ATVs, search dogs, and cadaver dogs. Not a trace of Jeremy was located. At the end of the day, law enforcement wrapped up their official searches for the missing man. The family and a volunteer search and rescue team continued to search the area the next day. On the 1st, the family used borrowed sonar equipment to scan the lake, and divers plumbed the depths to view areas that were unclear or in which objects were seen. Nothing. The news media broadcast a piece about Jeremy being missing, and the family printed and handed out and hung flyers all around the area. Hunters were told about Jeremy's missing status and advised to look out for him. Meanwhile, on September 1st, the case was handed over by the game warden, who had jurisdiction over the wildlife area, and the Forest Park Police to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, or OSBI. The family continued to search the wildlife management area on their own, but no one is certain that Jeremy is there, since no evidence of his presence other than his truck has been found. And he has not been captured on any game cameras that operate throughout the wildlife management area. The family also hired a PI who was not able to make any headway into Jeremy's whereabouts. When Jeremy had been missing for 6 weeks, the OSBI acknowledged that they were open to any possibility with regard to his whereabouts. Brooke Arbeitman, spokeswoman for the OSBI, told KFOR, quote, "At this time, I would say that all possibilities are on the table since we haven't located him." That remains true today, with Jeremy missing for 8 months. Not one single sighting of Jeremy has been reported, and no items belonging to or connected with him have been found. The OSBI has not conducted any searches for Jeremy for quite some time, and the family feels they have largely given up on Jeremy's case. Jeremy is a white male with blue eyes and a grayish-brown beard. He wears glasses and has hearing aids. Jeremy has gauges in his ears and quite a few distinctive tattoos on his neck, arms, shoulder, and wrist. He was last seen wearing a yellow t-shirt and brown cargo shorts. Mike Morford sat down with Robin Reagan, Jeremy's mother, to talk about her son's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist, because we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
Hi, welcome to Missing Persons. I want to thank you for coming on to discuss your son Jeremy's case with us.
Hi, thank you.
So your son's been missing for a little over 6 months now. And I can't imagine, having kids of my own, how tough has this been on you and the rest of his family?
Yes.
Before we get into the details and the clues in Jeremy's case,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell listeners a little bit about Jeremy himself?
Yeah. He was born in 1982, April 2nd of 1982. So he just had a birthday not long ago. He was just ornery as could be. But anyway, he was the first boy in our family in over 20 years. So of course, to say he was spoiled, first grandson, first great grandson, he was pretty spoiled. And then, along came his brother and the whole world changed. But anyway, so Jeremy was always smart and funny. And I always called him a little neurotic. He worried about everything. He could spot a dime from across the room on the floor. He, like I said, he did worry about everything. And I don't know why, he just was a worrywart. And so did pretty good in school, wasn't a great student, didn't care for it much. Self-taught computer programmer. He actually went to Barnes and Noble and bought all these huge, I don't know if you've ever seen a computer programming book, but they're thick and they're, none of it makes any sense to me. And he was self-taught. He read every one he could get his hands on and figured out how to work a computer and how to make it work and program them. And yeah. Wow. So if I had a problem, guess what? I called him because
he was your IT guy.
He's my IT guy. Computers, you're supposed to be able to turn them on and they're supposed to work. Well, they don't. And so, he'd always just laugh at me and go, Mom, so, but he moved out and, like any other kid does, and moved out on their own, dated a woman for a while that had 2 kids already. They were together for quite some time. One of them, his daughter, Dara, she was maybe not even 1 when they started dating. They had Kaylin, who's now 9. I say 9. Oh my gosh, shame on me. She's 13 now. She would kill me. But anyway, and they had actually parted, had Kaylin, and then they parted. Still family, still friends. They come to the house for every holiday. So it's not like it was a bad rift. It was just a parting of the ways. And I mean, they still are here for every single holiday, cookout, birthday, whatever. They're still here. So they're family regardless. And so Jeremy met another young girl, actually married her. They moved to Fort Smith, Arkansas, because we live in Bentonville, Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas. He moved to Fort Smith, went to work for a company called Golden Living. They manage nursing homes, like he did the computer stuff. They divorced because she wanted to move back to Canada and he didn't. So they parted so she could go back to Canada. And then he was just single down there for a while and met Heather. Heather had 2 kids. They're a set of twins, a boy and a girl. They eventually got married. They had Aaron, who is now 8. And then Golden Living was closing. And so he got a job over in Oklahoma City where one of his friends lived. And so they moved to Oklahoma City. And just worked and lived and would come over for holidays and, things of that nature. The twins were getting older and, in high school, kids get busy. And so you stop visiting as often and it just happens. Life kind of happens. And so, yeah. And then that's where we're at.
It sounds like he's, busy guy. He's got,
busy guy,
married. Yeah. There's kids. He's got a job. So he's doing all the things that a normal family guy is doing.
Doing what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is everything family life? Everything good within, obviously every family has some rough spots, but everything overall good, smooth at the time he went missing?
I thought so. I thought so. Like you said, every family has their ups and downs and they fight and they argue and it happens and that's just what you do. And I thought everything was happy. I thought things were good. They put on a good face. But I've had multiple conversations with his best friend, who is basically one of my kids as well. I've had multiple conversations with them, and it wasn't so happy from what I'm finding out. There was talk of divorce. There was, come to find out, Jeremy absolutely hated Oklahoma City, hated living in Oklahoma City, hated his job. He told his best friend that he most of the time felt like it was him on one side and his wife and the twins on the other. The twins were 16. They just turned 17 in February. But he felt like it was him and then her and the twins on the other side. He wanted to move back here into this area, into the Northwest Arkansas area, where his friends and his family is at, his support system. He kind of felt alone. Him and Heather both worked from home. And I am of the opinion that no two people can be happy in each other's face 24 hours a day. I mean, like, all this working from home is great. It's made it really convenient for families, and I get that. But you need a separation from one another occasionally. You don't, being together all the time. I can't imagine being with my husband 24 hours a day. There's just no way, I don't care how much I love you. There's just no way.
It's a real thing that you're talking about. I can certainly understand. And then there's probably people that are like, oh, we could spend 24 hours a day together.
Yeah,
probably not the norm.
Just honestly can't fathom it. You need other people to talk to. You need to be around other people. But I always thought everything was okay. And Jeremy, he put on a good face. And when they'd come over here, I find myself occasionally, I've sat and I've just scrolled through the text messages, my text chains with Jeremy, and I've kind of been rereading all of the texts that him and I have had over the, last year and a half or so. And I found in there where I had asked him on several occasions, hey, are you okay? You just seemed a little down. You seemed like you were stressed about something. And he'd always just say, no, everything's fine. I'm just tired. I'm busy, all that kind of stuff. And, come to find out through all of this, that he actually wasn't happy, and that their happy family that is being portrayed is not a reality. And it makes me sad. It makes me very sad for him.
Yeah. And oftentimes when someone goes missing, their life gets sort of unpacked, and people start looking at different pieces and saying, okay, well, what was going on here? And then you start finding out these things, that not everybody's life is perfect, and there's some things there. So it sounds.
Yeah, you get things thrown at you that are, now I'm a very, very determined, I guess you could say, and very impatient kind of person. I don't mind admitting it. It is what I am. Okay, and I feel like I was pushing for answers and pushing for the truth, and I still don't feel like I have the truth about what happened the day my son went missing, the day he supposedly left the house. I don't. All I know is there was an argument. He put his hands on the son and then let go immediately, as his wife told us. And then an argument ensued and continued to escalate in the house. And all I know is he got his handgun and he left. I didn't think much of that, honestly. Like, really, I didn't think much of it, because my son goes to the woods for peace and for quiet and for calm. We moved to this part of the country from Colorado, where my parents had a cabin up in the woods, and you'd have to half the time find Jeremy. He would be propped up against a tree somewhere reading a book. And that's where he'd stay. If he's had his brothers, that's where he'd be, is in the woods. but he was raised not to go into those woods without a gun. Like, you don't, especially once I got there and found out that there's wild boars out there. Well, of course you don't go out there without a gun. That'd be foolish, you know? And so
You're thinking was he would go out there to maybe clear his head and
yes.
calm down, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Oh, sure. If there was a big argument, sure, he's going to leave the situation. He's going to go into the woods and find peace and quiet. That's what he does, and always has. His grandfather, my stepdad, passed away in July of 21. It hit everybody in the family really hard. It really did hit everyone really hard. But he was almost 91 years old. So that, and he wasn't in great health. So it was actually no surprise, honestly. But then we found out, which my mom was really good at hiding, and through COVID, check on your elderly people. Like, it was, since you didn't see him through COVID, and then all of a sudden we realized my mom had dementia. And so the two of them worked together to kind of, mentally he was perfect and sound, and physically she was sound. So together they worked together, you know what I mean? And so with him gone, her dementia kind of shined through. And it made Jeremy sad, and it was very depressing, and as it was for the whole family, And so, I've heard the buzzwords, depressed, and okay, we're all depressed about it. I don't know.
No.
I feel like I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Well, no. There's a lot to,
there's in like 100 different places.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to start. You probably start thinking X, Y, Z. You start thinking of everything, the big picture of what was going on. But
the whole big, it was a big picture. Yes, it was. Yeah.
Can you clarify the date where this argument happened and where Jeremy walked out of the house?
Yes. So it was on 8/27, August 27th. So it's actually we're pushing on almost 8 months. It was 8/27. They had an argument that later in the morning, and about 11:30 or so is when he left the house. I didn't know anything about it until the 28th. That morning I had texted, I have a group text with Jeremy and his wife, because, like, no offense, most husbands, it's like, hey, ask her. And so I sent a text and said, hey, what day are y'all coming over next weekend? Because the following weekend would have been Labor Day, and they had plans to come over. We were going to have a cookout or whatever we decided to do. And I was trying to figure out food. So, I just sent a text and asked, hey, what day are y'all coming over next weekend? Just trying to make plans for food and, stuff. And I get a text back from his wife that says, well, he's been gone 24 hours. I don't know where he's at. I'm like, okay. Is everything okay? Did y'all have a fight? What happened? I need some clarification here, And so she told me about the argument with with Connor, and that he got his handgun and he left. I'm like, well, okay, well, we're not going to worry about that, because Jeremy doesn't go anywhere without his handgun. That's just normal. And especially if he went out to clear his head or something, he's going to take his gun, because that's what makes sense. You're in the land of copperheads and rattlesnakes, and, so I said, I'm not, we're going to worry about it. And then a little while later, I messaged, hey, have you heard anything from him or anything? And I had sent a message to his best friend asking, hey, have you heard from Jeremy or, anything? Check with David, check with them, all of his other friends and that are over here in Arkansas. And, he said, I'm just really afraid he's dead. I'm really afraid he's gone and done something dumb. I'm like, well, we're just not. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to think about that. Jeremy. He's going to go to the woods and he's going to clear his head. That's what he does. And so I didn't think anything of it. And then, Sunday, of course, there's nothing. He hasn't come home, no word from him. She filed a missing persons report on Sunday. Sunday afternoon, she filed a missing persons report, continued talking to his best friend, his sister, told all of them he was dead, but she was just sure he was dead already. And, And then on Monday, he didn't show up for work. That's when we started actually worrying, is when he didn't come home and go to work. Jeremy is a complete workaholic, as I am, as my dad is. We're a family that goes to work. I've kind of laxed up a little bit with that, but I used to be really bad about being a workaholic, and I've learned that there's a little bit more value to life than actually killing yourself with work. Jeremy hadn't figured that out yet. And so even on holidays, if Jeremy was on call, he'd bring his laptop here to the house. And so when he didn't show up for work on Monday is when his sister and his dad and I started to actually get concerned. That's when I really started, okay, something's not right. And I thought maybe he had gone out to the woods and got hurt. You know what I mean? Like maybe, because I don't know. I don't know what the terrain is in Oklahoma. I've never been out to the woods in Oklahoma. So I am just envisioning, he could have gotten injured and needed help. And so that afternoon, his wife said that they found his truck at the Lexington Wildlife Management area.
And just to interrupt you for 1 second.
No, go ahead.
When he would go out to clear his mind, did he go to a particular spot? Was it the same spot every time?
Yeah, it's a place called Lexington Wildlife Management Area. It's about, 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour from their house. Out on, if you go south and it's east of Norman, Oklahoma, down in that area. So it's about 45 minutes to an hour from their house. And it's a wildlife management area that has its trees. There's a couple lakes out there. Well, actually I call them ponds. They might call them a lake. I don't know. But it's just a wildlife area that's, there's not a lot of cell service. There's not on one side of it. I mean, so, and he would, and that's get out of the city. Jeremy was never a big fan. I mean, like I said, he was raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but he would just as soon been out in the woods. But yes, he would go out there quite frequently.
This is a 10,000 acre area, I believe.
Yes, it is 10,000 acres of land.
Is the terrain rough? Is it
No. So that was my concern, because I living in Northwest Arkansas. I actually live in Southwest Missouri. I sold our house in downtown Bentonville and moved up here to Southwest Missouri on almost 10 acres. But when I'm picturing I'm picturing our terrain here. A lot of hills, a lot of, ravines, a lot of, rough road, all that kind of stuff is what I had in my head was, hilly and all that kind of stuff. Far from that. It's pretty flat. Some of the vegetation is pretty dense. A lot of sticker briar bushes. You can't even walk through these things. They are vicious. And so a lot of paths through there, a lot of roads through there, but most of the roads are blocked off. You can't drive down them. And like I said, it's a wildlife management area. So there are people that work out there all the time. They put in what they call, what they call them. It's where they grow food for the animals. It's a food plot. They call it a food plot, and they grow all different kinds of vegetation out there, and the animals can eat. And there's deer and every kind of wildlife. There's wild boars out there, which I never actually saw one, thank God. But so yes, it is a 10,000 acre property, but it's not really super rough terrain. There's some hills, but they're not, they're not terrible hills. If my 50-year-old self can hike them, So.
Yeah. And you had mentioned one of your concerns was that he had gone out there and maybe hurt himself, broke, twisted an ankle, something like that, to where he was incapacitated. Yes. And I know that I know he also wore hearing aids. So I don't know if that could cause him to be, discombobulated out there, maybe. And just while we're talking about that, did he have any, like a medical issue that required hearing aids or?
No. my first husband, his real dad, my first husband, his whole family, his mom's side of the family, has a degenerative hearing loss. It's in the family. It is hit or miss which one ends up completely deaf or not. And I always told my boys, look, that side of the family has this genetic predisposition to going deaf. This. Be very careful and cautious with your ears. Don't play a bunch of loud music and, don't wear headphones with a bunch of loud music. Just be cautious with your ears. Well, his brother's hearing is perfectly fine. His hearing just slowly over time started to deteriorate. He can hear without his hearing aids. Now, you have to yell pretty loud without his hearing aids, but yes, he does wear hearing aids. And so we knew, so his hearing aids run off an app on his phone. And they're not going to last very long. Most hearing aids, from what I've discovered with my stepdad, because he wore hearing aids as well, the batteries on those things don't last very long. Couple days, maybe 3 on the outside. You know what I mean? They're not going to last forever. So we were pretty sure by then they were either dead or just about dead. His hearing aids were. So, yeah. He sometimes would take them out so he didn't have to listen to people. Like that's,
Would that be any kind of hindrance if he was out there walking around and he couldn't hear? Do you think that would cause him any issues as far as, losing track? I
wouldn't think so.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't think so. Because he didn't, a lot of times he wouldn't have his hearing aids in and he could function just perfectly. Yeah. It's just a matter of everything's quiet.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so I want to touch base on the fact that they find his truck.
Yes.
Any signs of anything wrong with the truck? Any
no
issues with it being vandalized or not running properly? Anything like that?
No, they found his truck right below Smith Lake, which is right there. The wildlife management area has a main road that goes all the way around the management area, the land area, and then there are offshoot roads, right? This Smith Lake is off one of those offshoots. And you could actually, from when I pulled into the land management area, I could look down the road and see where his truck would have been parked. Because that's where all of the law enforcement was when I got there, was down this road. And you could clearly see down there. So no vandalism. His phone was in the truck, turned off. The truck was locked. I guess law enforcement was out there Monday evening, the 29th, when they found the truck, until dark. They had drones up and the dogs. Now out there's, I believe, 2 prisons out in that area. They brought the dogs from one of the prisons over there. They're search dogs. And from what I understand, they did find a scent from the truck to the lake. That's it, from the truck to the lake, and that's it. There was no other scent detected other than from the truck to the lake, which wasn't very far. It was just up this little path. And so after Monday's search, they were back out there Tuesday morning. I let my son's wife know that I had to make arrangements. I have one of our granddaughters I have custody of. She's 16. And so I had to get her to school Tuesday morning, and I made arrangements for her for the rest of the week, for a few days is what I assumed was a couple days, is all it would be. And I made arrangements for her, dropped her off at school, and I headed out Tuesday morning for the Lexington Wildlife Management Area. And when I arrived, they were done. They were leaving around noon. It was around a little after 12 when I got there. It was kind of disheartening a little bit. You see on TV, and I promise everyone in this world that what you see on TV is basic BS. It's not real. It is not what happens in real life. He's a 40-year-old man who went missing. And so they don't garner a whole lot of attention. The law enforcement was there. we had a long chat about Jeremy and what was going on. And then I had a conversation with the game warden. I asked for a copy of the map of the place, asked what kind of terrain I was looking at, what kind of animals was I going to detect out here or come across. Any other questions that all my questions were at the game warden, and he was gracious enough. He marked on my map where they found his truck at, and they gave me all the information I need about any animals or the terrain or anything of that nature. And they all left. They were all gone by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was left there by myself. I mean, I was literally in this land management area alone, trying to figure out what the hell happened to my son. Sorry. His best friend was on his way. I knew that they were almost there. Just like everybody else in the family, my daughter, his dad, his other best friends that live here in Arkansas, we all thought he was maybe injured and just needed help, and we just needed to find him. But he couldn't be found. And so, yeah, when his best friend got there he had picked up Jeremy's wife, and they came out to the land management area, and we went and searched a few areas. I drove around for a while until they got there, trying to get a feel for the area. What does it look like? What do the roads look like? Can I walk through all this crap? And, I got there in a pair of shorts and my chacos, my sandals. So yeah, Bass Pro got quite a bit of my money for clothes. Which is okay. It's fine. But yeah, so that's how the first couple days went.
Pretty overwhelming, it sounds like.
It was extremely overwhelming. Really, it's not. I was extremely disappointed in the fact that they left. They didn't find him, and they left. They had done basically all they said they could do. And I'm like, well, how the hell can you say that? Because he's not found. You haven't found him. You know what I mean? You haven't found him. You haven't done all you can do. But that's okay. I will go find my son, period. I'm a pretty determined kind of person. I don't give up easy. I may sit down and cry. I may cuss at you a little bit.
No, take your time.
And some people just say I'm flat angry and mean. But that's okay. They can call me whatever they want. This has been almost the hardest 7.5 months of ever.
You had to have all that time with no word, no answers.
No answer, no. But life has to continue, right? I mean, I have a teenager that goes to school. She's in high school. I have a home. I have a job. My boss has been fabulous. Like, he's been great because he knows I would quit tomorrow if I would leave him high and dry. If he had a word to say about me going to look for my child. And he doesn't. I'm just like, you have to.
I mean, it's got to be a tough situation where you've got to balance, your most important thing is your child. Yeah. But then you have the career and bills to pay and everything else. Yeah. So you have to figure out how to.
I have hiked in that land management area. Oh God, more than I care. I come home with my ankles cut from the briars that are out there. But you do what you have to do to find the people you love. They're your family. Their family's everything.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist. Because we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
911, what's the emergency? My wife fell asleep in the bathtub and I think she's dead.
In August 2008, Sarah Widmer, a healthy 24-year-old woman, is found dead in her bathtub just 4 months after marrying her husband Ryan, the only person at home with Sarah that night. Suspicion quickly fell on Ryan, leading to his arrest and conviction for Sarah's murder. But could this have been a tragic accident? Ryan has adamantly maintained his innocence for the last 15 years. Now, two seasoned criminologists examine this very controversial conviction for the murder of his wife, Sarah.
This case is the one with the most unanswered questions.
Now we're looking for a murder attorney. Like, who do you even ask?
You know, when you go in there and sit in that chair, people are going to automatically think you're guilty just because of where you're sitting.
Is Ryan a murderer, or did something else happen in that bathroom? Listen to Direct Appeal Season 2, The Ryan Widmer Case, wherever you get your podcasts.
How big a team have you had in doing these searches? I know you said the police basically left that day and then you were out there.
Yes, they did.
Who else is helping you? Are you getting any volunteers or anything like that that have gone out there?
So the first week he went missing, we did, let's see, on Wednesday, the search and rescue team was out there early. Thank you for getting me back on track because my brain was just cycling. Anyway, let's see, on Wednesday morning, the search and rescue team, there was a guy, Hunt Investigations. His name is Jathan Hunt. I had a conversation with him on Tuesday. And he said he was going to be there at 6 o'clock. His team would be there about 7 when the sun came up. And they were going to do a search. And I'm like, okay, well, I will be there. So me and his best friend, we stayed in a hotel in downtown Oklahoma City. We were actually there before he was, and met with Jathan and the search and rescue team. And then as the morning went on, my daughter showed up. Jeremy's sister got there. She came in from Arkansas and got there, and they were coordinating and getting a couple of the dogs out searching. And then Jeremy's other friends from Arkansas showed up. They got there. And the 4 of us went and they were on the east over near the lake where his truck was found. We went on the other side of the road and started searching that area. And then later his dad got here because everybody has jobs, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody has work. And so they all had to coordinate work to leave. But everybody was here. Our whole family was here. It was Jeremy's ex, Cassandra, that lives here with her 3 kids. They got there. And so the first week, the search and rescue team was out on Wednesday, and then they were back out on Sunday to do a search. A lot of the searching has been me and Jeremy's brother. We were able to coordinate a search on somebody's private land. But most of the actual searching since Jeremy went missing, other than that first week, has been me and Jeremy's brother, Chris. Me and Amber went over and I bought a sonar to sonar the other lake. And so her and I went over one weekend to, after hunting season started, we went over, I got permission to go onto the lake during hunting season, as long as I didn't disturb the hunters, and we wore orange, that hunter orange. We sonared the big lake. And then, so it's been mostly just us.
Sounds very, very overwhelming to have to sort of become your own search party and not really know what to do and not have training and just
well, yeah, like I don't, you know, the game warden and the sheriff's department searched, they sonared Smith Lake, which is the lake that it's a small lake out there at the Lexington Wildlife Management Area, which is where his truck was found, was close to that. And they came out and sonared that lake. They did horizontal, vertical, and at a diagonal. And then they actually sent divers down because they thought they saw something in the water. And so they sent the divers down into the water, but there was nothing there, which I find it hard to, I would find it hard to believe that Jeremy would do anything that involves water, because Jeremy is afraid of water. He's always been afraid of water. I mean, he had to take beginning swimming twice. And so he doesn't like water. He'll go out on a boat or on a canoe, but to actually get physically in the water, I don't see it happening. But not going to leave it out. You know what I mean? And no, it has been mostly us, and it's been a very big learning curve and a very daunting task, because you don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. You know what I mean? We did search. I have looked up online and found people's names and information and called private landowners and got permission to go search private people's lands that are close to the Lexington Wildlife Management Area in case he, you know, walked away. If he walked away, well, where would he go? And so I actually had one of the guys that owns some private land over there. He actually met us out there with his four-wheeler and took me riding around all his land looking. And we were able to get a search party put together for another private people's land. And they had the search dogs out and everything over there, and we searched there. I've talked to landowners, and they've gone out and searched their empty trailers, and I found an empty house, an old empty house, using Google Earth. I find myself looking at Google Earth and zooming in on all this property, just looking all over that whole area. I've checked a couple of abandoned homes that are close to the wildlife management area. I just find whoever owns the land or the house, and I call them and ask them and tell them who I am. And can I please go check your property? And they're like, most of them are sure, no problem. I mean, I have to say that this is a very rural area, a very poor area. And the people that live around there have been extremely gracious and very helpful. We had some volunteers that go to the little church across the road that hunt in that wildlife management area. They went out and did searches on their own. And they've just been very gracious and very helpful. Right before hunting season started. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you have to have some help, some people that are willing to, you know, give you support and know the area. Because without it, you're just, it's like a mountain in front of you.
It is a mountain. Yeah.
I'm curious, with all the people that did help you, all your searching, everything that you did, all the time you put in, did you find any signs of Jeremy out there at all? Any footprints, any of his belongings? Nothing at all.
Nothing. So hunting season started October 1st. Me and his brother searched on the 29th of September, and his friends from Arkansas, his best friend and his friends all came over that Friday, and we all searched again on the last day before hunting season started, because we were already told that October 1st with deer season, we weren't allowed out there. Right. And so, okay. I had bought and ordered signs to put out on the corners and put out all over the land management area. We put up posters and we put signs up. I put signs up at every turn in the road so that people could see Jeremy's face. These hunters knew that there was a person missing in these woods somewhere. And I had multiple conversations with the game warden that if a boar got a hold of my son, if he was injured, and because I'm real, I'm not dumb, I know that things happen, and there is animals out in this world that they don't care what you are, and so they don't just eat wildlife. I'm not dumb, and it was a possible inevitability. I don't know. But I even questioned the game warden, if a boar got a hold of him, wouldn't there still be a sign of something? His shoe, his gun, his something. And he said if a boar got a hold of him, there would still be signs of him out there. They would find something.
Clothing, shoes, a gun,
yes,
something would be there, which is
something. Yes.
Which leads me to the next possibility.
Sure.
Is there any possibility that he, his truck was there, but he never went out into that?
It's possible. It's possible.
Have the police looked at any other possibilities outside of that area, or they have focused their attention just right there?
They've just focused their attention right there. So they ran the forensics on his truck, like they pulled fingerprints, they ran all the forensics on his truck, and then they released the truck back to his wife. And I have had multiple conversations with the OSBI. I actually filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office, because I don't think enough is being done. And I don't know if it's being overworked, if it's not enough hands, not enough bodies, just like, you go to a restaurant and there's not enough people working. You know what I'm saying? It's every facet of our lives. Everybody's shorthanded. And sure. That's not an excuse for me.
What things in your mind weren't done that you felt should have been done, or they weren't doing enough of?
There's some of that I can't answer because like I said, it is an open and active investigation. I just don't think that I don't think anyone believes anything other than either my son killed himself or he walked away from his life. We're not finding any trace of him anywhere out in that land management area. Like nothing, like zilch. I mean,
that's pretty troubling, because you think even if if he did take his own life, or if he got hurt and succumbed to elements, where are his remains? Where are his clothing?
Exactly. And that was my thing with the game warden. The game warden told me if we don't find him before hunting season starts, a hunter will find him, because hunters don't just go on the edges of the wildlife management area. They're in the trees, they're in the brush, they're in the everything.
Yeah, and typically when you hear of a body being found, it's a hunter that's finding it.
It's a hunter that finds
so many cases.
Yes,
absolutely.
Oh, it is. And I get it, because we even found several. I mean, me and his brother were over there hunting. The land management was actually closed for a week, and I had to beg forgiveness from the game warden because I went over there when it was actually closed and I wasn't supposed to be there. But okay, sorry. Hunters had me and his brother on game cameras, and so that's how the game warden found out I was there when the place was closed, is because I was caught on a game camera. But there's nothing. Like, there's been not one single trace of him in those woods anywhere, and like nothing. And I don't know. I have a hard time that he walked away without something have almost like a mental break. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, me and Jeremy were very close. His brother even says, Jeremy was a mama's boy, basically. His brother doesn't feel he would do that to me.
As far as walking away and starting a new life.
Walking away from, because of what. And I have a hard time with that because of what he knows what that would do to his children. He knows the emotional toll that would take on his sister. He knows what that would do to all of us.
Did he have the resources to even do something like that? I mean,
I don't know.
I guess if you're resourceful enough, you could walk away with just the clothes on your back, but
you could. Yeah, he
If you
could.
have, on the other hand, if you have some kind of money, documents, things like that you can use. But it sounds like, again, by going what your daughter-in-law said, was that he stormed out of the house with his gun.
Yeah.
So this was short notice, spur of the moment type of thing.
Yes, that's what, we understand. And Jeremy he may have had a bag in his truck. I've never known Jeremy not to have a bag in his truck of just supplies. He's one of those, even when he'd drive over here and planned on going back home, he still had a bag in his truck of stuff, but he's also a survivalist. He knows what you can eat out in the woods. He knows what's good, what you can and what you can't eat in the woods, out in nature. He even pointed out in my own yard hey, Mom, this is wild, whatever. I was like, okay, great. I'm not putting it in a salad. No, thank you. But he knows what you can and can't eat out in the woods to survive. He knows how to make a shelter out from whatever's out there. He knows how to make a bed, how to make bedding. And he took classes on that just for entertainment. That was his fun, was things like that. So I don't know. I just don't. I'm at a complete, I will continue my search for him, whatever it takes.
And you bring up some interesting points, because even if he knows how to live off the land, and even if he just sort of says, I'm gonna go out in this area and disappear, and live my life out there, I think it would be hard for him to do that without being seen, without being caught on someone's game camera, as you mentioned, without somebody coming across him at some point. So with that, seemingly not possible. And then the fact his remains haven't been found out there, or any of his belongings, then that sort of opens up the possibility that he was never really there. And then that's a whole nother
ball game. Yeah, that's a whole nother deal. Yeah, that's a whole nother deal. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. I'm at that I don't know point. You know what I mean? It's one of those, what did happen to my son? I don't know. They've been doing a what they call controlled burns over there in the Lexington Wildlife Management area. I guess they do them every year. They burn off a certain portion of the land, which they need to, because the vegetation gets so thick. And I called and questioned when they told me that they were doing this. And I've gotten to know most of these guys. I had a conversation with the game warden at least once a week since Jeremy went missing. I have conversated with him. I communicate with the OSBI agent at least every other week, most of the time once a week. I have at least texting with them if there's any information. I kind of like the texting or the emailing, because then I have a record of conversations, because since Jeremy's gone missing, my brain is pretty focused on one thing. It takes up about 90% of my brain power in my mind most of the time, thinking about where he's at, what's happened to him, what else I need to do, where else can we search, what else can we do to try to find him. And then I take 10% for the rest of the world, for the rest of what needs to be done. And so the text message is really good, because I can keep track of everything that's been said. And I've communicated with these people at least once a week or every other week since Jeremy went missing. If there's any information, have you seen anything? Has there been any, anything come up? And so when I found out there was a controlled burn, I called out there to talk to them and find out, first of all, what the hell are you doing? Like, if there's evidence out there, if Jeremy's stuff is out there, it's going to get burned up, and not knowing how a controlled burn works, but now I do. He said, actually, if he is out there and his remains are out there, it would bring them to light. It would bring them to the surface. Because a lot of time that vegetation, you can't see things. And when the vegetation is gone, bones, even animal bones, not just human remains, but animal remains, they actually get brighter and you see them easier in the woods. And I didn't know that, but I do now. And so I've learned a lot more about being out in those woods than I ever cared to. So far, since the controlled burns have started, there's been no sign either since that has started. So I don't, in my heart of hearts, I don't think he's out there. I just don't.
Very frustrating to
yeah,
to have an area to search but not find anything there, and that's
and we've found nothing there. Yeah.
Well,
we've even, like I said, we've searched people's private lands with their permission. I've gotten their permissions to search their private lands and abandoned homes on people's land, and there's been nothing. There's been absolutely not one single solitary trace, not a drop.
And just to go back and recap real quick. So when his truck was found there, it was locked, but the keys were not there. Is that correct?
Right.
And his gun was not there. His phone was there in
his
the truck?
Phone was in the truck. It was turned off. Yes.
Okay. So
yeah, it was in the truck. Mm-hmm.
And do you think if he was going to go out in the woods that he would take his phone with him just in case? Does that strike you as odd that the phone wasn't out with him?
That was the first thing that kind of struck me as weird, because first of all, his hearing aids run off an app on his phone. If he didn't want to be found and his location not known, well, that's easy to do. Just turn the location services off on your phone, right? I mean, if you have Life 360, you can still turn all that stuff off. And he's smart enough and knows computers and phones, how they work, enough to know that if you want to not be found, that's pretty simple, right? Now, were they fighting, and did he just want to not have to listen to his phone binging constantly? Okay, probably, maybe, but yeah, his phone was turned off and it was in the truck. So I don't know. I thought it was odd. I've always thought it was odd, but then everybody else kind of gave me reasons to why you would turn your phone off. And I was like, well, yeah, okay, I can see that. I can see not wanting to see the constant text messages or whatever popping up on your phone or your phone vibrating or whatever. I can see that, I still found it odd. So, yeah.
Well, and the only reason I think of that is because I know when I've been out in the woods, especially if you're going out in a big area where there's animals, you're bringing a gun.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you would want to have the phone there just in case
it's your lifeline.
You get hurt, you get lost. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
It just seems, but you brought up some valid reasons why somebody might not bring it with them if he didn't, if he just wanted to shut down and get away and be quiet and stuff like that. So
but to me, that's your lifeline. If you're out in the woods, if you're a hunter, So
I agree. So I know over the past almost 7-8 months now, you've sort of thought of other things and things that trouble you, and I'd like for you, if you feel comfortable enough explaining where your mind has gone to what you think may have happened here.
I know the second day that we were out there, actually the first day I was there, his wife continually telling me that she thought he was dead. And I made it very clear that I was not to hear that out of her mouth again. And that until they drug my son's cold body out of those woods, my son is alive, period. I'm running on that note, and I will stay there. My son is alive until someone proves me otherwise. Because when you lose hope, why bother, right? And I know, which I've been told by others, people handle situations and circumstances differently. Everyone handles a situation differently, right? Not everyone can just keep going. And I know that, and I understand that, but I expect a level of participation. I expect his wife wasn't out there a whole lot helping us look for him. And the twins never came out to help look for him, ever. And I was pretty intolerant of that. I expect you to continue to help looking for him. I don't care if you have to sit down in the trail and cry, but you need to suck up your emotions and you need to go do what you have to do to find your loved ones. That's what you do. And that's my opinion. And I know that sounds harsh. And I know that probably sounds mean. But to tell me that you're having a really hard struggle and that the kids are struggling because their dad is gone, and the words that were used was that he abandoned them, I have issue with. I expect you to keep going, and I expect you to man it up, and I expect people to get out there and keep looking for him. And when that doesn't occur, I'm not very tolerant. My family has always meant everything to me. I would lay down my life to make sure my children were taken care of. And his wife kept telling us that it was no culpability in whatever happened that day. I asked what happened. I wanted to know what everyone in the house said because I needed to know Jeremy's mental state when he left the house. And that was what I told her. I wanted to know what everyone in the house said. Everyone, not just Jeremy. I didn't want to hear what Jeremy said, what Jeremy did. I wanted to hear what everyone in the house had to say. And she stopped talking to me. The twins did not come out to help on the last big search that we did on Sunday. My daughter had gone home on Friday just to get a break. She needed a break. And so my daughter went home on that Friday and then came back on Saturday with my granddaughter that I have custody of, Eve. She is 16 also. She's the same age as the twins. And she was actually mad at me because I wouldn't let her come to Oklahoma with me to help look for Jeremy. I made her stay home with some friends of ours and go to school and do what she had to do, But I let her come back out that weekend, and she was determined she was going to be hiking in the woods. She didn't care. She was going to go help find her Uncle Jeremy. Well, his 16-year-old twins did not. And it didn't set well with me. And now, okay, it's their children, it's her children. She can make decisions for them all she wants, and that's fine. That's okay, I didn't agree. So that's just me. Maybe they are 16 and don't need to be out there. I mean, I get it. If we found something, that's something you really can't unsee, right? But still, yeah. And then the following week, we came back out that next weekend for Friday and Saturday, and then went home on Sunday morning. On Sunday, I told her that I knew something happened in that house. I don't know what happened. Something happened in that house, and they weren't being honest, and they weren't telling us the truth about exactly what happened in that house on that day. And I got blocked from the Facebook page that's to help find my son. My daughter got blocked. My son's best friends got blocked. Every friend that we have and know got blocked from that Facebook page. And it's to help find my son. That was a little suspicious to me. And I don't trust him. I don't. Yeah. It's been something. I'll put it that way.
So you think, and again, I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like you think maybe there's more to the story about him leaving and what led up to it.
I do. I honestly think there is more to the story than just the argument that ensued. I do know there was an argument with the son. Jeremy put his hands on him, which by no means should he have done, but he did. And then according to his wife, he immediately let go. And then the argument continued in the house. It all depends on which day you're reading her text. depends on at what level the son was crying or whatever. And then I don't know. I do feel like more happened in that house than what we're being told, because there's too much. Now, I kind of poked at the teenagers a little bit. I did. Like, I'll be honest with you. And I don't care. I posted some stuff on Instagram. And I don't know. Okay. I don't know how Instagram works. Don't really care how Instagram works. It's not my thing. But I knew that his wife still followed me on Instagram, even though I never go on Instagram. And so I posted things occasionally every day or so that said things about, the truth doesn't mind being questioned, but a lie doesn't like being questioned. It was just all this weird stuff about telling the truth and being honest and all this kind of stuff, because I've been asking for the truth of what happened that day, of exactly what happened. And I only get half-ass answers. And so I posted these things on Instagram. Well, his wife unfollowed me, and the twins got a little bit out of shape about it, which, okay, it's whatever. I mean, I know I'm an adult. I shouldn't have done it, and I don't really care at this point. And so, and I'm their grandma, and if you're not going to tell me the truth, but that's fine. Even my granddaughter that I have custody of is like, are you seriously posting that? Don't you know better? And I'm like, well, I probably do, but it's okay. I didn't really care at the time. I think back on what I did, and I was like, that was kind of dumb of you. You shouldn't have done it, but I did it, and it was okay. It's all right. And so, but I kind of saw what my son was living with. I sent a message to the girl, the daughter, and said, I understand why y'all didn't come out and look for Jeremy. There was some text messages that went back and forth, apparently, between 4 of the teenagers. We have several teenagers in the family, which God help us. But there's the twins that are 16. The one I have here that is 16. One of my other granddaughters, Jeremy's best friend's daughter, she is 17. And so there was a group text between the 4 of them. And my granddaughter that is here finally gave me the text and sent me all of the text messages that was sent between them. And in one of them, the daughter said, I don't care about him. And it made me mad. And how dare you? He's missing. And for you to say you don't care, it infuriated me. And so I sent that to her in a message on Instagram. And I said, I understand now why you didn't come look for Jeremy. And that's okay. I'm going to find him with or without you. And that's what I said. And I started getting this barrage of text messages from the 2 of them, from the girl and the boy, from Cora and Connor, just one right after another. And it kind of made me see what my son was living with. Because if you argue with one, you argue with both. And it made me see what my son was living with. Every post that's on Facebook from his wife is of this beautiful, happy family, all getting along and doing things together. And it obviously was not a very happy family. And it makes me very sad for my son to have been unhappy and us not see it and not know it. And I do know there was talk of divorce. He said that day, she even told us that he said he could go get an apartment tomorrow. And then all of a sudden my son is gone. And it just is very sad.
I am curious, the police, did they speak to your daughter-in-law, and was she cooperative? What?
Yeah. They talked to her a couple of times. They've talked to her. She turned over the Ring doorbell camera footage that shows Jeremy leaving the house that day. And so, yeah, she's very cooperative. Yeah. I just would like, I've always wanted the whole truth. I don't care what the truth is. Like, right. I don't care what the truth is. I just want the truth. And that's what I've been asking for this entire time. Like, even when the twins were barraging me with with messages, I even said, all I want is the truth. That's all I want. That's all I've been asking for this entire time, is I just want the truth of what happened that day. That's all I want, So, yeah.
Is there any scenario where you could see yourself, that mending these things that have happened in your family, that you could work together to find Jeremy, or you think that's that ship has sailed?
There's not. That ship has sailed. The ship sailed the minute the 16-year-old son told me the words out of his mouth are in the message, and I have them in print. Feel free to find Jeremy dead or alive. Feel free to find his ass dead or alive. He isn't welcome back in our home again. That ship was sailed. And her mom moved in with them on the Monday after Jeremy went missing. And her mom had the nerve to post something on Jeremy's birthday about, we love you and all this crap. And her mom wouldn't even give my son the time of day in his own home. Her mom turned her back on me at the table when we were having a conversation, visibly turned sideways in the seat so that her back shoulder was pointed at me on my grandson's birthday at their home. That ship sailed. So, yeah, I've been told I'm harassing them. I don't even go to their home. Like, I haven't been to their home since Jeremy went missing. The week after Jeremy went missing was the last time I was at their home. And that was to see about getting a book of maps that have disappeared, supposedly have disappeared, and can't be found. So, yeah.
These maps that Jeremy would have used?
So,
okay.
Yeah, they were hunting maps for for all of Oklahoma. Yes, their Oklahoma Wildlife Management puts out a book with all their maps of all their land management areas. That map surfaced a couple days after Jeremy went missing. His wife had it, showed it to the search and rescue guy. I looked at the one page of Lexington Wildlife Management area marked on my map, where Jeremy had marked that he liked to hunt in that area or look in that camp in that area or whatever. And we haven't seen the book since. It just kind of vanished. And so, yeah, that was, yeah. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah.
Well, it's not definitely not a good situation, and you're not any closer, it seems like, to finding out what happened.
We're not. We're not. I mean, we will not lose hope. I mean, I will never lose hope, because, really, and I can tell you the reason I asked you if she reached out to you is because literally I don't see a whole lot being done on that side to try to find him. She said she had was just too sad and too depressed and everything. And again, it could just be me and just being harsh. But sometimes you got to suck it up and move forward. You have to, would I like to crawl in bed and just stay there and cry and be sad about my son being missing? You damn right I would. But you know what? I can't. My son deserves better than that. His sister, she would have loved to have just stayed home that first week Jeremy was missing and not been out in those woods looking for him. But she got out there and looked for him every day. And his best friend, his other children that live here in Arkansas, none of them are emotionally equipped to be out there looking for him in the heat and in the sun and in the woods. But you know what? You do it. You do what you have to do. It's family, and you go help them. I don't care what happened in that house. I don't care what the fight was about. Yeah. And that's what I told them. I don't care about their fight. Their fight doesn't matter. What matters is finding Jeremy and helping find him. So the minute you stop doing that, and the minute you give up hope, and the minute you continually say that my child is dead, the minute I'm done. And I know that sounds mean, and I know that sounds hateful. But that's what I have to run on. It's just,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned helping find Jeremy. If there's anyone listening, especially if they're out in that area that can help you, is there anything you need as far as resources, volunteers, anything along those lines that people can offer to you?
It's been one of those, at this point, we don't know what to do. Like, we don't know where to go at this point. The land management area has been combed. The conversation I had with the gentleman from the land management area and then the game warden is they had record numbers of hunters in those woods this year. I mean, chalk it up to price of meat. I mean, if you think about how much the price of meat's gone up, they've had record numbers of hunters in those woods this year. I mean, every one of them knew that Jeremy was missing. There was signs up, and we have flyers hanging up on poles, and everything else out there. I don't know that he's there. I just want everyone to, even if they're anywhere in the country, if Jeremy walked away or had a mental break, or just, I mean, honestly, if he did walk away, I don't know. I have no idea at this point. Just keep an eye out. If you're part of our Facebook group, with his sister's Facebook group, just share his information out there. I don't care how far it has to go. I just want his face out there. I just want his information out there so that people, yeah.
And if you could, just while you're talking about the Facebook group, can you give the name of it so people can check it out?
Yes. Let me just make sure I say it right, because I know me. I know me, It's called Missing Jeremy Reagan, and in parentheses, it says, help us find him. His sister created that Facebook page after his wife blocked us from the other Facebook page, because we're still going to continue in our search for Jeremy. I don't care how long it takes. I've started reaching out to homeless shelters and things like that, just in case. I mean, that's. I checked into getting a bulletin board or billboard. They're called billboards out there. I don't know why I kept calling it a bulletin board, but that's not going to do it. It's a billboard out over there in Oklahoma somewhere. I've been checking on pricing of all those and how to do that, and if they have any available, and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely not giving up, and you're going to keep up the fight to find out what happened to him. And
I will never give up like that. It's not in my DNA. I will. I mean, as I would hope any mom would do. I would hope any family that's missing a loved one, you don't give up. Like, something happened and I don't know what. And we'll get to the truth eventually. When I find Jeremy, we will get to the truth of what actually happened that day. And at some point, it doesn't really matter what happened. I just need to find him. And yeah, I mean, again, at the end of the day, it really does not matter what happened that day. I want the truth and I want to know what happened that day, but I just need to find Jeremy. Jeremy is what matters, and finding him is what matters. And I don't want, she started posting out there about things about, he's got PTSD and he's bipolar and he's, severe manic depressive, and all these buzzwords and all the buzzwords, right? I don't buy the buzzwords. Like, I don't, I just don't. I lived with a severe manic depressive, bipolar, severe manic depressive for 30 years. I know what that looks like. So I don't, was Jeremy depressed about his grandfather and then all of a sudden his grandmother? Well, yeah, we all are. We're all struggling with all of that. But as any family would be. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, as any family would be. It was compounded by, from what I understand, is a very unhappy home and a very unhappy family life. Yeah. So.
Well, keep up the fight. Keep looking for him, and
always.
Again, we'll do our part. We'll
always.
Share his
Thank
story
you.
and
Yeah.
get it out there. And I hope
you
do get answers soon.
Yes, thank you. We do too. We will keep looking, and we'll keep doing what we have to do to find him. Yes. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about missing persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review missing persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get early or ad-free access to episodes of the show and any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with charlieproject.org, the wonderful website that's been sharing information about so many missing persons cases for years. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/missingpersonspod. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us and contact us through our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.